You're listening to Style as Identity.
Yes, we're your hosts. I'm Frankie Ikwuazom.
And I'm Lola Catero. So, is starting a brand on your vision board?
Or do you just love fashion and want us to talk nerdy to you?
Either way, we got you.
Join us as we get into aspects of the trade that you might not find online. We're uncovering truths from the founders and designers daring to build within their vision and values.
These brands, they're shifting our understanding of the style status quo. And the more time we spend with them, the more we expect from what we wear and the brands that sell them.
So, we're glad you're here.
Let's do this. Hi, everybody. Lola here. Okay, we are so excited for today's episode. Palestinian-Jordan Arab designer Sylwia Nazzal of Nazal Studios is with us. So this theme is ancestral and dives into the brands that are honoring legacy, building for their own legacy in the world that they want to live in. And we couldn't think of a better brand to kick this off with and dive into than Nazal Studios. Yet, Sylwia, your first collection, which should have been home, is exactly that. It's an ode to ancestors, honoring of resistance. We'll get into the video. There's so much, but it's built today, but it forced me to reflect on the future that we're building. And from the collection having hijab hoodies to camel-shaped shoes, each piece handmade by you or within your community, they're heirlooms at first stitch. And I can't wait to hear more. So let's get into it. Hi, Sylwia. Thank you for coming here.
Hi.
Hi, Sylwia. We're so glad you're here.
I'm so excited to be here.
Well, thank you for spending time with us. And to Lola's point, when Lola sent me the link for your stuff, I was like looking at all your creations and the world that you've built. And just the first thing that hit me, everything hit me at once, but the first thing that hit me was just how much space so much of what you make takes up. And we'll get more into that later, but that metaphorically is just a really beautiful and powerful way to start the conversation and continue it. We wanted to dial it back a little bit in time. You went to fashion school. I think you graduated in 2023 from Parsons, Paris, which is super impressive. That was not that long ago.
Yesterday.
And yeah, it feels like yesterday.
You're amazing. And then you graduated. And we're curious, how did that change where and why you shared your designs? Like, how was your work received in the real world? And how did, I would say, like that environment, the learning environment you were in, kind of get you ready for where you are now?
Yeah, so I went to a super Zionist school, and even my first day of my last year of university, they told me, do not do a political collection. And then that's exactly what I did.
Was that like a general announcement?
It was a general announcement, and I believe it's because everyone already knew I was going to go political. That's kind of how I was throughout my university years. I was very outspoken and political, especially about my culture and heritage. And last year of university, I always knew I needed to make a collection about my home and my country, what should have been home. And I spent a lot of that last year arguing and fighting with classmates and teachers about my thesis subject. And when I graduated, it was not something people were speaking about. And it was in May 2023. And when October 7th hit, it was almost like everyone perceived my work differently, including recruiters who were also just looking through my portfolio and seeing what should have been home, Palestinian resistance against the occupation and oppression. And I think just from that sentence alone, I got a lot of rejections. I had designers tell me, we would hire you, your work's amazing, but we can't because you're too political. So I just decided to move back to Jordan because it wasn't working for me in Paris, which was predominantly racist towards Muslims and the Middle East. So moving back to Jordan was amazing, but I kind of just started posting my work online and accidentally went viral, and everyone was asking me, where can we pre-order? Where can we buy? And so I just kind of had to get into it without thinking. It's always been a dream of mine, but I dived right in before I was even ready. So I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm also forced to figure it out because I don't really have another way to go.
One thing that comes to mind is the fact that you went to social media. And whenever I think of social media, I'm now accustomed to it being like an environment where like people kind of scream on top of each other and cancel each other out. And I think what's really impressive about what you did is, I mean, it sounds like it was out of necessity. You were like getting all of these no's, people who were essentially trying to silence you. And you then were like, okay, I'm going straight to the source. But I think the lesson that I learned from that story is you kind of opened up your circle and went directly to like where people were, and people were attracted to what you have to say, were compelled by what you have to say, even though prior to that, some of these more specific institutions were not willing to stand with you there. So in my mind, that's like kind of changed. Obviously, social media, you get different things here and there, like depending on what you're putting out. But I am glad that kind of propelled you accidentally to where you are today.
Yeah, definitely. It was a big jump. I felt like after October 7th, the world was kind of ready to hear the message I've been trying to say for years. So it's really heartbreaking that it took so much for the world to wake up and realize what was happening in this region, in this part of the world. But at the same time, it created a huge voice, which is really powerful at the same time.
You're right. Took a little bit long for the world to wake up. And let's just acknowledge that right away. And Lola's going to get into this, but part of that is also because a lot of us were not looking to Palestinian people to tell us their story. Like we were reading what was happening from other places. And so that's captured differently. And I think what's really compelling about what you do is you speak, but you're also inspired by and creating a platform for more people to speak. But you're not saying, I'm the only one who's going to share on this. Like you're kind of expanding so that you can speak on what's happening, but also making room for other voices. And that's something that is powerful because like there are many Palestinian perspectives, but the resistance is something that we've seen come through in terms of like whether it's literature, fashion, videos that are just being captured. And so I think it's really beautiful that with your work, you're also creating more of a platform for more people to be heard.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Getting into the collection, the physical pieces a bit, the collection is candescent, conveys both an empowerment that comes from being Palestinian, which, and Frankie was touching on, like, unfortunately, the media, the Western media fails to expose and people are trying to silence actively. And understanding that landscape and then looking at your collection, these silhouettes are large and grand, and the text and messages within the garments, they're small but ever flowing. And it emphasizes to me when I was watching it, this need to be seen and heard and to share your story. And your ancestral stories, the ancestral stories of Palestinians, have also been severed by genocide and displacement and resilience, but this pain. What has it been like for you to explore this history, thread it into your creations? And how do you protect yourself in the process?
Well, honestly, the research itself was so difficult to find at the time because I was doing this work in 2022 to like collect all the research and then start prototyping and creating. And I spent pretty much summer, essentially 3 months of 2022, just diving into research, contacting photographers and libraries and trying to find books and to find more and more images, which was really difficult. And now there's a lot more access to these things since October 7th, which has been a blessing at the same time. Kind of like, oh, wow, this would have made my job easier.
And Sylvia, why was it difficult?
It was difficult because there wasn't a lot of resources online to see what was happening or to receive a lot of imagery. And so when I was looking in libraries, I actually even found a Chinese book about Palestinian embroidery and Palestinian dress that gave me so much information that I wouldn't have found anywhere else, which is actually quite shocking. But that summer of 2022, I went to Palestine. I went as a solo trip and I was just there talking to as many people as I could and videographing them, photographing them, having conversations, having them explain to me things about heritage, roots, culture, our land. And I think that sparked this insane feeling of justice that I needed to uphold in the collection I was doing. I was already so outspoken and political, but actually being with everyone, speaking to everyone and connecting and explaining what I'm doing and what my work is, and them finding like books that they had in their houses or in their stores and from the back and being like, you can't leave with this, but please take pictures and spend all day here if you want, was so special. And it connected me even more to the work that I was doing. So I think that's actually what kept me going. But throughout the year, it was a lot because the genocide never stopped and it never started on October 7th. So throughout the year, I'm constantly diving all of my work and everything to my work revolving around Palestine and then having to also check my phone and be updated about the news was also really, really difficult. It wasn't necessarily like the imagery I was looking at, but it was more like because I'm so invested in doing this justice and then I'm also watching the current news, that was really difficult. But at the same time, it's not something that you have to protect yourself from. It's something you have to fight for because I'm not in it. I'm not in the genocide. I don't live in Palestine. I live in Jordan. I can't sit here and be ignorant or suffer to what other people are going through at the end of the day. I feel like I have this justice I have to prove and I have to help, especially being able to not be as silenced. I can be silenced maybe through social media or the algorithm, but not in the way where Palestinians are taken from their homes or their families are taken away from them. And that's how they are silenced. So I feel like I have this voice and this privilege that I need to use to share what's happening, to keep the conversation alive.
The reason I asked why it was difficult is because I was just trying to understand, is it because there wasn't enough documentation? Or is it that, I don't know, some libraries you need to be like a student of the library that the university is in to even have access? So there's like a lot of, oftentimes, regardless in different aspects of history, there's like a lot of like sometimes gatekeeping in like the literature and history that we can actually find. And so I was curious about that. What is interesting is that you describing going to Palestine and visiting and talking to people, and they were like, you can't keep this, but you can take a picture. It feels like where the archive didn't exist and wasn't accessible, you then created an archive with your collection. So your collection in a way is a more present day archive of the things that other people would have difficulty finding. And so, yeah, you've kind of transformed the historical language that's been hidden into something that we can all access now. And speaking of that, like you have crafted this rich language through the beautifully constructed materials, and it's all rooted in Palestinian resistance, as you've been saying. And this does come out strongly in the What Should Have Been Home collection. So we have seen the early sketches that you turned into the hijab hoodie and the kafia hoodie and so much more. And the campaign video that we've been referencing multiple times now, everyone can check it out at Sylwia's website, nazalstudio.com, kind of challenges and mystifies the viewer all at once in like how beautiful it is, but it's also like very honest. And so something that we want to understand is like, how do you design something that's rooted in Palestinian action without centering the oppression and the oppressors?
Yeah, I think that's also a great question because even when I was starting the collection, I wanted to focus on Palestinian traditional dress and my take on it, but then to ignore the genocide was really, really difficult. And I needed to include both. And they needed to be just as heavy and just as powerful and just as strong as one another because it is an ongoing fight. And so I think essentially I wouldn't even say actually it's difficult not to include the occupation in the sense of including, like, let's say the IOF or the military. I don't think that's difficult, but it is difficult, at least for me, not to acknowledge the genocide when creating these types of works. I feel like sometimes it feels redundant when I don't talk about what's actually happening when I have a voice and my artistic expression is to express myself. And that's what I want to talk about. But at the same time, I do understand why it's sometimes nice to just see the heritage and see that we are something without this occupation or occupying force on top of us. It's a dance. I think sometimes I'm more drawn and inclined to speak out because that's how I feel and that's what I want to share. But I also do want to take time, especially in like my upcoming work, to appreciate just the culture that doesn't include, let's say, just Palestine and also doesn't include the occupation on top of us all the time where it's our identity. Because at the end of the day, it isn't.
What are some of those aspects of the culture that you find yourself revisiting, going back to? You were saying it's coming up in your upcoming work. You don't have to tease it for us if you don't want to.
I want to be teased.
Okay, Lola wants to be teased. I will be teased. I won't complain. We'd love to hear, like, what are those rich aspects of your culture that you keep going back to, and how are they coming out in some of the things that you currently have out as well?
I think it's so easy to be influenced by culture. I think it's really, really easy to be inspired by culture, especially when you're looking right at it every day. Like, even for me, I'll see someone walking down the street in traditional Arab dress, like a man, and then he has a modern suit jacket on, but then he has an agal and a kafiyeh, and the kafiyeh is like folding into the suit. But at the end of the day, it's like this suit jacket mixed with a traditional dress. Same thing with puffer. You can see them in the winter wear puffer jackets over traditional dress, which I think is so interesting. And like even that alone is so inspiring. I think it's so easy. Just look out your window or look at the street and be like, this is like I'm seeing a hijabi woman walk across the street. And just the way the scarf was flying in the wind that day created a shape that's interesting. Or there was a woman I was speaking to in Jerusalem in the old steps, and she had a hunchback, and it was so beautiful. Her hunchback and small frame and the way the shape she was creating just by sitting. And I was like, wow. And like her cane, that to me is also inspirational. But I think I just get drawn a lot to the way a garment looks in a moment, or a specific traditional dress and the way it moves in a specific moment. So I'll always go back to, I think, tradition. That's something I'll always be inspired by. But how I reinterpret it or how I want to envision it or see it reimagined is where it's fun and exciting. I think that's also like a big part of, I guess, the tease of my upcoming collection. It's definitely going to be centered around culture and our history and our traditions, but more in a modern way that I haven't really seen used yet. We're using, I think, also very like natural fabrics and natural dyes, which I think will be fun.
Hearing you talk about what inspires you, what aspects of culture inspires you, it was always all of your examples referenced a person and how they were wearing it. It wasn't, I saw this in a shop window or something. And so it's no surprise that your current collection does come to life through the wearer in that. We talked with Naomi Nomi and had this discussion one time of what gives a garment life, if it sits on a chair all day or if it's not being worn. And hearing you share that with us reminds me of us as adding beauty or adding to the narrative, but we are vehicles for this, what the garments help communicate. We're in it together, intertwined. So taking this inspiration into the actual physical pieces, your designs, they've imprinted into my mind. One of them, most of all, actually three of them. Who am I kidding? So the first one is no surprise. You watch the video, you look at all of your work. It's a prominent feature capstone of what should have been home. It's this armor of 10,000 coins, which is 72 kilograms or 160 pounds of garment and coins glittering in the desert sun. You sewed this by hand alongside a group of Palestinian women that were based in a refugee camp in Jordan. How did this garment come to life?
Well, this was fun and exciting because my reference for this was the way we hand sew and adorn headpieces or clothing with coins to protect you from evil eye. And I kind of saw this image of a woman wearing or a child wearing a headscarf, and there were coins along the edge. And I thought that was so beautiful. And I created the hijab hoodie, and I was thinking of adding coins to the edge of that. But then that felt redundant and like I was just slapping it on, and it didn't feel like I was actually designing and creating something. And that's when I decided, why not cover the whole thing with coins? And then it kind of felt bland if it was just a hoodie. So I needed to make a skirt that goes underneath. And it was a very long, tedious process. I think sewing on coins took 4 to 5 months.
How many people worked on it?
3 refugee women work on it, which was really special. And I would help and come and go back and forth from time to time. But they were definitely the star of the show. And they have amazing handwork because they do tatreez or embroidery. And so because of their amazing handwork, I found that they would be the perfect, most suitable people to create this garment. But we never realized how heavy it was or it was going to be. We just kind of were like, okay, wait, there's more coins. And then there's more coins, and having to constantly give and give and give more coins until it was fully covered. And then the skirt needed a harness. So then I was having 3 people carry the skirt while I was on a sewing machine, finding like a 3mm thick leather to stitch the skirt onto. So it was a really difficult moment, but it worked. A model could wear it for a maximum 10 minutes. That was enough. And the desert was less.
And that's like, I'm assuming, a very strong model.
Oh, yes. And it's a very long piece. So a tall, strong model. It was a difficult one. And always putting it on a person is even more difficult and challenging because there's risks. Like if it's on too long, how will it hurt them? How will it weigh them down? Can it break a bone? Can it like hurt their neck or twist something? Like I never know, and it scares me. So I'm always screaming and attentive and scared whenever someone's in it, and it's usually a friend. So I have even more fear around it.
I also do love the experience. Like I haven't lived it, but of sewing as a group. And I know like historically a lot of cultures sew stories into things that then they pass on. So I know you said it was really special, and just from hearing you say that, I can understand why.
It was so heartwarming to hear stories about a home I never lived in. That was really special. And to hear their experiences and their stories of what they went through. And then creating a garment that ended up being so heavy. And it's almost like when the person is wearing it, they're like reinforcing resistance because they're resisting the garment. And at the same time, it looks like armor. And sometimes I think because it looks like armor, it's almost a spiritual armor because they were used to protect you from evil eye, the coins. So I kind of reinterpret it as that. But whenever I see someone wearing it and how they have to push through, then I kind of feel like it reinforces the statement of the whole collection, which is resistance.
Okay, the second piece that has stuck with me, around 3 minutes and 30 seconds into the video, is a long tan puffer with red text on the inside. It's subtle but striking. Like if you look, you might miss it if you blink. It's quite a contrast to the coin garment, almost quietly profound. Can you share a little, what does the text say and how did the garment come to life?
So actually, the text is inside every single one of the pieces of the collection. And it's essentially an incomplete list of Palestinians killed in 2022. And it was a list that took a while to find and pull together. And it's labeled by name, age, date, and location. It's a very powerful list. It's really emotional. And there's, I think, up to 5,000 names. And the fact that we don't actually know how many there really are. And now from October 7th till present, there's even more names and an even bigger number. And if I did this collection a year later, the names in the list would keep going on, which is so heartbreaking. When I did this list, it kind of needed to be on the inside because I wanted something to honor everyone and honor the people that I'm creating the work about. But at the same time, I don't want it to be exposed because it's not really a fashion statement. It's more of like, because it's close to the body, the person wearing it is kind of like carrying the weight of what it feels like to be Palestinian because you see all these names and all this bloodshed and you can't do anything about it. So you're kind of holding it close to your body, you're carrying it, you're carrying the weight, but it's a personal feeling that no one else will experience except you, except the wearer. That's what the list is. And that's kind of the interpretation that I put behind it. It's all the pieces I create are really, they were meant to be art statements. They were never meant to be something, to profit off of. I'd rather see them in a museum, which actually that gold, it's actually like a interesting shade of gold puffer is actually being exhibited in a museum in Canada, in Toronto, which is exciting. But that's exactly the kind of statement behind a piece like that with the names inside. It's so big and grand, and the shape has that hunchback from the woman I spoke to. And it has like a hijab silhouette. There's no neck seam, but at the same time, it's grand and it's huge and it's actually really heavy. And the names are close to the body.
I love that it gives the wearer the opportunity to hold space for them. That's really strong. Okay, the last piece, and then you all just have to see the collection for yourselves. But Sylwia, the camel shoe?
Yeah.
Say more, please. Say everything.
It's a crazy piece. I actually have one with me now, but this is the wooden one. They're crazy.
It's like metallic in the video.
Yeah, I have a aluminum shoe version of these camel hoof shoes. But essentially, I really wanted to work with camel skin for the collection. And then when I did work with the camel skin out, I thought to myself, wow, it's so beautiful. It's so interesting. But like, what about the hooves? No one uses the hooves.
What about the hooves? What about the hooves?
So I mummified them for 3 months on my roof. And then I casted them in resin and I got a molding of them. And then I started working with a wood maker and then a metalsmith to try to recreate this like art piece of a shoe. Hopefully one day I'll be able to be more wearable so they can be produced more. But at the moment, they're just an art piece and a statement that you can kind of walk or slide in.
I'm still stuck on the let me just go mummify this.
Yeah, you were like casually let me mummify it on my roof.
Yeah, it was messy. It was a pleasant experience.
Yeah, I feel like people don't see the messy part of creating.
Of camel mummification. People just don't know.
Yeah, the whole collection was messy. The whole video, everything was messy, but no one saw it. They saw the outcome.
That's what I meant. Like, people never see the messiness behind creation. And it's like, we need to talk about it. Everyone sees the final product and they're like, wow. It's like, yeah, wow. But it's that good because there was so much messiness behind it.
That's it. This is what has been also burning in my brain for a question. The business and marketing hats on, right? We're watching this video. We're seeing the collection. It's under a dozen pieces, art pieces, coin armor, and commercial pieces as well that you have on your website. But this campaign video, 14 models, about 10 team members to create the actual video. We're not even talking about, the team of people to help create some of the garments. I know there was drones used. Like, I saw those shots. It's high art and professionally produced. It's under 10-minute video that got it done. It signaled to me a lot of stuff. One, you're talented as fuck. I mean, you are a recent grad, and that leaves me speechless. Like, this wasn't a recent grad film. The product and narrative, they emanate from our heart, sweat, and soul. And it wasn't like a special ingredient. It was the whole sauce. It was the whole sauce. And the question I'm wondering is, when you graduated, you were experiencing all these people that weren't for you. They weren't alongside you. But when I look at this list of contributors that have helped create this campaign video, that helped create this whole collection, you have started to really find your people that brought this to life in a monumentous way. And what was it like building this team and bringing everyone together to look at this beautifully clean, absolutely not messy output?
The whole team itself was a bunch of young Arab creatives, which I think is so special, to work alongside a group of Arabs who all collectively believe in the same message and the same thing. And it was so special, to be honest. Creating the team was fun and it kind of happened on accident. And then finding the models was so challenging because it was a week before we spontaneously decided to do the video, and it was casting anyone and finding anyone did not matter, really, their background. We just wanted to find Arabs and hopefully more and more Palestinians who were ready and able, who had strong faces that wouldn't take away from the clothes but add to them. And the whole team they were patient and hardworking and kind, and they allowed my stress and my last minute planning and honestly my amateur directing, my amateur approach to the whole shoot to be something that they loved. And I think for me, like, I'm genuinely forever grateful that they helped come and create this vision and have it come to life. And I've been planning this video or dreaming about it since I started the collection. So they all came in and they were amazing in their own ways. And it also proves what young Arab creatives can do working together. Like, this isn't a professional video at the end of the day. These weren't professional models or videographers or anything. We just showed up and had the same vision.
Also, nothing about you is amateur. I mean, I know what you mean, like experience. Like, I feel like I'm learning from that, and that I stop myself from doing stuff a lot because I haven't done it yet. And it's not where you are in your experience. It's rather like where you are in the confidence you have in your vision. And I feel like you all had that. And then you also had it collectively, which speaks volumes. So nothing about you is amateur.
I'm just saying, like, you're saying nothing about it was professional. And it's having me rethink, like, what is professional? Like, you had this amazing vision. It was executed exceptionally. And if that's not profession, that's profound. It's profound profession. Okay. Okay, everybody, you're professional.
Thank you so much.
The theme is ancestors. So we want to wrap up with this, Sylwia. What is the legacy that you want to honor? And then what legacy are you hoping to leave?
Honestly, I just want to honor Arab culture and Arab heritage. And the legacy I want to leave behind is bringing it to the West and bringing it around the world, and hopefully in the process uplifting people of color and minorities. And at the end of the day, I feel like there's a lot of focus in fashion on acceptable politics like feminism, but specifically white feminism. It doesn't count when it comes to people of color. And I also feel like there's just a huge lack of what fashion should be. And I feel like the legacy I want to leave behind is bringing back the punk in fashion in the sense of not aesthetic, in the sense of speaking out about the things that should be spoken out through art. But it was honestly like a huge pleasure to talk to you both. And I'm really grateful that you allowed me to have this platform. So thank you so much. And I know I yapped the whole time, so I appreciate the listening.
Oh my gosh, you have to yap.
That's why you're here. We're like, please yap. Thank you so much, Sylwia. Also, thank you to Yasmin at North Studios for connecting us. Yasmin knows everybody that is worth knowing, an incredible connector. And so go check out North Studios and the work that they're doing.
Bye, Sylwia.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Hey, everybody. Lola here. Thanks for listening. Style as Identity is part of the Majority Group, which is focused on spotlighting and supporting the brands that make us feel seen. In addition to this podcast, we offer business and strategy advice to brands, have an investment arm, and more. Basically, we want to see you win and do what we can to make it happen. For more info on us, head to themajoritygroup.com. Love ya.